Salute to you all. The brave never fall. This podcast will be short and to the point because it's just talking about responsibility. Too often in life, when you're dealing with people, especially when you have to deal with people, not when you have the choice, because when you have the choice to deal with people, the decisions you make with those people they have a much more of a wider range of consequences to them because you don't have any attachment. You can walk away at any time from that relationship. But when you're around people where you have to deal with them and you have to listen to them and you have to interact with them, and regardless if you think they're right or wrong or in between, no matter what you say, what you do, you're going to see that person every single day. Doesn't matter if it's a coworker or if it's a family member, a friend. It's the same deal. It could be the gas station attendant that you have to see every other day. You form these little relationships with people based on nothing but general information most of the time. And unless you're really, really deep in with the type of people that we're going to talk about here, we're not talking about people very close to you who understand everything about you and they know what makes you tick and they know how to press your buttons. We're not even talking about that. We're just talking about people who, when you're around them, you expect them to do and say certain things because out of respect and compassion and empathy and just basically what their role is in your life and your role in their life is. Because when you're with anybody, there's a role. There's a role for when you pass somebody on the street. There's a role for you, for that person, for that little small second you're with that person. Your role may be not to hurt that person or harm that person. Maybe your role is just to say hello to you. I hope you're having a good day. Just to make that person's life a little better. You all have a role, whether you're conscious of it or not. Responsibility comes into play huge with that, in my opinion. Because responsibility, I think we all are aware of what that means. Regardless if you think about it all the time or not, you're responsible for so many things before you call a wrap on the day. You're responsible for just, in some cases, just countless things. There's just so many responsibilities. And a lot of times you're not consciously thinking of it. It's a subconscious thing that you're doing, a set of routines that you're doing, just habits and patterns that you do throughout the day, but they're all based in responsibility. Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing, or are you not doing what you're supposed to be doing? Are you deflecting what you should be doing, or are you embracing what you should be doing? And what should you be doing? That's where prioritization comes in and purpose comes in. Responsibility is huge. It's right up there with self-discipline. Self-discipline, you know what you have to do. You know the price it's going to take on you if you don't do it. You know how that's going to feel when you fail to do something you know you should be doing. You're not changing something you know you promised yourself you'd work on. You're not living up to your full potential as a human being, and you are aware of that. You know that this is happening, and yet you still are in this loop where you know you want to be a certain place, but you're just not getting there. In a lot of cases, that's okay because each journey is a long journey. But it's self-discipline. You can change it. There's routines and patterns and things you can do in your life to help you reach your goal of being a better person through self-discipline. I don't believe there's ever a ceiling to that. You can always get better at self-discipline, which is why I love it so much. Self-discipline is just huge. It's absolutely huge. And then there's that responsibility right underneath it. What are you doing with your self-discipline? Is it for good or is it for bad? Because there are a lot of people out there who are disciplined in themselves, but it is murky, it's cloudy, it's not full of good intentions, it's malevolent, and a lot of times it's selfish and narcissistic. Now you can look at responsibility a completely different way, because a responsible narcissistic is completely different than a responsible empath. But they both have self-discipline in what they do. When you look at it like that, it's scary, because that means that person, that malevolent person, that narcissistic person, has just as much drive and self-love and self-determination as the person who's trying to be benevolent and trying to be a person who's empathetic to other people and trying to show compassion. They both have the same determination of who they are. So responsibility really does shape which spectrum you're on when it comes to self-discipline. If you have ill will towards people, your responsibility is completely different than somebody who has goodwill against people, who want to find everybody that they can pull into their lives and try to make them better. Better. You can't save everyone, but you can help. Help takes a small measure of time, very small. Helping somebody can be as easy as opening up a door and being chivalrous towards another human being, and it doesn't even have to be the opposite sex. Responsibility is being aware that you do have a subconscious, and you need to try to figure out what your subconscious is up to when you're not thinking about it. I think about this all the time, because that's where those bad habits and routines pop up, in your subconscious. You don't even realize you've been thinking about something inappropriate for an hour. You don't realize you've been ignoring someone and not even realizing that this person has been affected by it. These are all things that if you do it enough, it becomes you. Your self-discipline will become, and it will turn into and manifest into a person who ignores people. And a lot of times these people have no idea that they're doing it. It's in their subconscious. They have no idea that they've turned into a person that has fallen into a routine of an area that a lot of people would find to be irresponsible and ignorant. That doesn't mean that person's bad. And that's what we're getting at here. That person may not be bad. And a lot of times they aren't. It's just a bad trait. It's a bad routine, bad patterns. If you mention that to this person, you are going to get a mixed reaction from them, because they don't quite understand what you're talking about. Furthermore, they might even ask, why do you care? Go live your own life, buddy. Should you care? I would say it's up to each individual to be aware of themselves in that context enough to be able to want constructive criticism. And you can tell the difference between people who want that. I'm the type of person where constructive criticism means the world to me. I need that. I invite it. I want it. I love feedback from people. And I really like negative feedback from people, because that means there's something I can fix about myself. That's responsibility. I'm being responsible for my actions, because I would love for somebody to tell me when I'm doing something wrong so I can fix it. That means everybody else around me is going to be better. If it's a legitimate thing that I'm doing that's wrong. How do you know that? Because I'm going to listen, and I'm not just going to take the word of one person. I'm going to explore it. I'm going to take the time to explore what this person is talking about. I'm going to meditate on it. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to ask around. I want to figure this out. Am I really doing this? Or am I not doing this? Whatever the case may be. But one of the things you can never do is have somebody walk up to you and gives you constructive criticism, and your defense mechanism is, well, what are you doing? When somebody comes to you with something and they're trying to be responsible enough to try to help you with something that they think may be a flaw in you, and they may be completely off base, I think you should listen to them. You don't have to agree with them, but the worst thing you can do is deflect that energy back towards them. So if you think you're receiving negative energy coming from someone else towards you, regardless if that person is right or wrong, if you get defensive and you start wanting to deflect, and you start wanting to send back the pain and the negative energy that you feel like you just brought on, you're just adding to the problem. And that's irresponsible. Because trust me, there's a very fine, thin line. And again, somebody giving you constructive criticism that is not a close family member, friend, or a co-worker, somebody you're really close with, somebody you are confident knows you enough where they can walk up to you and give you constructive criticism, that's different than somebody who you're casually knowing in everyday walks of life, acquaintances. That's going to come off completely different. But that's where responsibility comes back in. It's your responsibility to be able to be mature enough and aware of your self-worth enough to know in either circumstance, you still can stand tall and proud, take that criticism and agree or disagree, and you can still vocalize that back to them. You can communicate back to them, I appreciate you taking the time to understand me a little better. And through your eyes, I either agree with you about this and here's why, or I disagree with you about this and here's why. And if they don't want to hear or talk about it anymore, then there's no value in it anyway. Because somebody who really cares about you wants to offer you legitimate constructive criticism, they're going to listen to what you have to say one way or the other and accept whatever it is you have to say one way or the other and shake your hand and walk away. Now both of you are being responsible. Both of you learn something about each other. Both of you learn something about what it takes to be a person who is not falling down into this pit of irresponsibility and believing truly in their heart that they're a good person, but they haven't explored anything about themselves. It's very hard to deal with people like that because you don't know their measure of self-worth. You don't know. Maybe they're hurting. Maybe they're living through the lives and eyes of someone else. Some people out here, they don't really care so much about how they are. Their priority is someone else, and that's all that matters. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That is why you have an opportunity to talk to these people. Communication is really one of the most responsible things you can do in any relationship, whether it's an acquaintance or a loved one. Communication is so essential. I just always felt like if you're a person, if you've done something wrong, be responsible and say it. If you're a true friend or a family member and you love somebody and you feel like there's something you want to help them with, it's irresponsible for you not to give it a shot. It's irresponsible for you not to explore your brain. But it's all up to you. Responsibility is on each person. You have to figure it out. So what are you doing in your life? Do you feel like you're being a responsible person? Do you feel like you have the power within you to be able to take on constructive criticism from someone else and actually turn that constructive criticism into a learning tool or an opportunity to communicate with somebody who may not know you all that well and have been passing the assumptions and judgment upon you? When you wake up every morning, do you feel like the day before you were very responsible and you're going to carry that momentum into the new day and the day after that? Do you feel responsible when you do something wrong? And have you told somebody you were wrong if you did something wrong? When was the last time you communicated through meditation or through a conversation with somebody else about who you are? How you feel? How do you feel? People look at responsibility completely different than I look at it a lot of times, because responsibility sometimes is looked upon as only been about getting on the grind and doing the things that you have to do throughout the day to survive, essentially. And that is true. But responsibility goes further than that. You are responsible for your own heart and your own mind and your spiritual being in this world, regardless if you're religious or not. You are a part of this world, and you are a major important link. And you have a responsibility to understand how you fit into that chain. What link are you? Are you broken? Are you damaged? Or are you a strong link? Only through responsibility can you really figure that out, because you have to be responsible for your own self-worth. You have to be responsible for your own actions. You have to be responsible for what you say to other people. You have to be responsible to how you respond and react to other people. You have to be responsible for your life, for your journey, for the courage you have for yourself. That's responsibility. It's not just about getting up and going to work and paying your bills. That is part of being responsible, yes, but it is a very small component compared to all the other things that, if they're not right, the little mundane adult responsibility things that we hate to do mean absolutely nothing if you're not responsible for your own self-worth. If you have no self-worth, you have no responsibility. You're lost. I've been there. I know that. I've felt it for years. And I know the difference. And this feeling I feel now, having self-worth, I have a sense of responsibility. I have a purpose now. You're responsible for your own life. And your own life means so much in this world. You are so important. It doesn't matter how many mistakes you've made. It doesn't matter about all the people who haven't forgiven you for those mistakes. It doesn't matter how good of a person you believe you are, how many people you help. None of that matters if internally you're not responsible for everything that you're doing. You're not disciplined about it. You're not prioritizing right. They all go together. You have a duty and responsibility to yourself first, and that's going to filter out, and you're going to add value to everyone else once you figure it out. Life becomes high definition when you look around. The trees look different. You're going to get your senses back. You're going to start smelling things different. You'll hear things you never heard before. It just opens things up. And it's a great feeling, just like it is when you finally pay your car off, or you watch a kid graduate from high school, or you see the birth of a new baby, or you can name all these things in life, weddings and birthday parties, all these great feelings that we get from putting things together and seeing the outcome come together in a shining moment. You can get that from yourself as well. There's nothing better than piecing yourself back together after you've been broken down, and you somehow get back up, and you're responsible enough to know you could have just laid down and given up, but you were responsible enough to stand up, put the pieces back together. And not only did you do that, you started walking. You started walking back on your journey and started figuring out what went wrong. What did I do wrong? What did other people do wrong? And how do I make sure that never happens to me again? That's responsibility. If no one has told you this today, I love you. You deserve to hear that. Salute to you all. The brave never fall.